Alright, oh, great, so that's it. I got that. Your job, maybe not, I didn't have that. Where I'm at from that. Yeah, I mean, what is that? He is not like in time. Let's see. Surrounding some of my wiring on their movie, something other than. So they were still in the well.
Mark, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay,
We're
thank
still in the well, one on.
He said yes.
You said yes, so you were here?
Yeah, you couldn't?
Yeah. Still there. Yeah. Well, that's what they've done on other properties. They still didn't have water coming in. Oh, mine? Yeah. Let me check. Yeah, I know. Again, it's.
Bidding tomorrow.
That's what they do.
In some cases, quite a few years ago, and I said to myself,
Yeah. Excavation. He was just asking. Where they go. Storm trees. What do you need to something run down the curb or something? Yeah. Water drains that will cross this year. Yes, I have a soap pad. Well, I'll share with you what I told me on the day I was leaving to go to my daughter to get motion. And the thing that's very cool. And it was so screen or something happening. You know, giant. I mean, he's thinking it down. 26-year-old. Oh.
I just want to make sure that is. Oh, I didn't do that.
I don't know. Jeff will usually puts it on the table there.
Oh, you could hear.
Can you guys hear us? You can just give me a thumbs up.
Well, Mark could
Yeah.
hear us, but then they couldn't hear
Yep.
his response.
This is one microphone.
Oh, so they can't hear
Oh,
the
sorry.
speaking.
No. So they, so you should be able to turn up the volume on that.
Yeah, it's up all the way.
Okay,
You want me to put it on the table instead?
that's what Jeff wants.
No.
And guess what disappeared from, exactly time, 2:09. So I have to do all those snow and ice manually.
Just staging.
I'm having it at work. Let's see, so I'm missing Howard Dave's, which I get. She's obsessed with 15 minutes on Chris's.
Maybe I'll just put the speaker on the chair. Like I'll put a chair out.
Bring copies, can I run copies of
Yes,
this
yeah.
report?
You should be able to go right down. I'm going down that way.
Thank you. I'll just like put this on a chair. Hey, good, how are you? I don't usually do it. but-
Jeff on?
Jeff Colby's in, yeah. And Lori should be here shortly.
Just started.
Someone else is coming in. I'm just going to the wrong door then.
Must be cold out for more people on remote today.
Definitely cold in South Carolina.
Yep.
I have a feeling a couple of these guys are out of town.
I know one person that's in sunny Florida.
While we're waiting, did anybody catch Jeff and Lori's show? I think something, a couple weeks ago? I watched it. Well, we kind of all did, I'm not super. But, they did a great job, so bringing those guys up to speed. And, if your house was on fire and you wanted someone to call 911, you should probably call Jeff, because he has such an even temper. You don't know anything was wrong.
Hello.
That's a compliment.
You know what I-
Thank you. Then they were followed by the legislative delegation. Yeah, that's correct.
Thanks.
So I'm gonna start by taking the roll. Take your time. Let's make sure we have a quorum. So, great, so. Welcome to the February 5th meeting of the Water Resource Advisory Committee. Yes, if we have a quorum, is John here? David, you're here. Mark, online. Mary?
Present.
Hi, Mary. Is Lee here? There he is. George?
Here?
Is here as well. Will? Here. Myself. Yes, well, in attendance, so. We also have Jeff, Colby online in case we need him, or you want to chime in, feel free.
Could somebody point the camera down so we could see the group? There we
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you much.
You want to translate them, if you can hear?
Oh, they just wanted to be able to see you guys.
I'm here.
You can make the sound go to the TV. How would you do that?
So, gentlemen are ready to go, who wants to go first? Go ahead, Lou, we'll start.
Do you want me to bring up your documents? That
Yeah,
have?
if you want to bring it up on, for those on the screen, because you share screen. All right, we can start with the groundwater discharge permit, because that seems to be the topic that we're most concerned with at this point. We formed a working group with DEP. And since the last meeting, we've held 2 workshops with representatives from DEP, including staff from Boston and the assistant director, Karen Lynn, the deputy commissioner. So we've gotten their attention and they've been participating in the workshops, and we've had some very good dialogue with them as ways we can help move this project forward. And I would say one of the what we're asking them for is at least a permit to the 1.5 MGD. That 1.5 million gallons a day. Thanks. For next time. One of the accomplishments we made is that they aren't necessarily going to hold us to that 1/10 foot of rise in groundwater. And we've asked if we could look at different scenarios, so we're looking at 1/10 of a foot, half a foot, and even up to 1 foot in downward elevation rise. What they've come to the conclusion that we exceed the 10 foot, there's additional evaluations, impacts to adjacent wetlands, impacts to private properties, and potential flooding of basements, and impacts to surface waters that are surrounding the sites that we're looking at. So we're still focusing on Buck Island Road as the primary site. Because the other alternative sites that are being considered are in what's known as the Zone 2 drinking water wellhead protection area. So there's some additional treatment that may be required if we were to discharge treated wastewater into those Zone 2 areas. So we have a meeting coming up on the 13th of February. We're meeting every 2 weeks with DEP on this workshop.
Did you meet on the 17th of January?
We did. And on the 30th.
Oh, you met again, like.
Yeah, so every 2 weeks. We're
So
meeting.
there's both happen.
So we've had 2 workshops.
And including some of the state reps who also had sent or participated from both the House and the Senate. So.
Are you hitting that first day or you told me?
No, we're meeting over Teams. Zoom. No, it's, well, Teams.
Keeps the bloodshed down.
So, just, small point of clarification, the 1/10, rising water levels at that discharge location. That cumulative is 0.1 everywhere. Obviously, you get to that 0.1.
It's at the receiving waters, where you recharge the groundwater, where the groundwater goes.
So you get them up into the ground up to you get to 0.1 Buck Island, and then if you go the inside of town, you get up there, so you get to 0.1 up there. You look at the map with the waste money in it.
Well, that's why we're trying to do a sensitivity analysis and get them to agree to do 0.1, 0.5, and 1 foot increase.
So you're still unsure what would happen with this 0.5 and 1 foot?
Well, we've modeled it previously, but we've got them to at least consider evaluating those now versus before it was 0.1 and.
Right,
or not.
so what was your models? What did your models say about those?
Oh, there's a lot more flow you can put in at those sites.
So you think there is much more than before?
Yeah, and that's why we want both the sensitivity analysis too.
Right.
I mean, ultimately, the bottom line is they have to evaluate impacts to wetlands, or is Yarmouth gonna solve the nitrogen problem that they have total maximum daily limits they need to meet for a state order. So at least they're open to that.
One thing we might point out is that, well, we're gonna need some help from the Conservation Commission. That, you know, we've looked at, and obviously the normal changes in groundwater levels, you know, so far exceeding that 0.1 foot. We feel that there's a tremendous amount more that can be very safely discharged there without any negative impacts to the wetlands. And in fact, you know, a lot of our evidence and work with the lower points to some of the wetland areas being included of water. It actually helps having a little more. But it's not the wetlands people that are dealing with, but it's the regulatory, and they've brought up several times that they'd like to have, you know, ensure that our local conservation commission looks over our plans and gives us some approval on that. So there's our outreach. Jackson is outreach written in conservation office, and so we'll be working on that.
What comes first? Where's the Conservation Commission come in order of events?
I think what we'd like to do is piece up a little more analysis and the technical information. We'd like to develop that as a matrix that these guys are looking at, sort of measures the impacts. And, we have that issue, we like to distribute that to the compounds as well.
Question,
Before we get too far along.
question. Got it.
Yeah, we're in the process of evaluating sites and starting to fill out that matrix. So, we hope to have a couple sites with the matrix filled out for next week. And then we'll be plugging along, looking at other sites, as they develop.
So not too many weeks, we have that data, next couple of weeks, we'll get it to you guys as well. Sort of hoping a little bit for some Calvary relief. You know, indicate that it's not as enormous of a concern.
Question,
Go ahead. Who's online?
it's Mark Gelkowski.
Go ahead.
Is the assistance from the Conservation Commission a regulatory issue or a land ownership issue? Or a land management issue?
By the way, can you guys online hear us okay?
It's awful muffled. I don't know if it's placement of the microphone or what, but
You wanna bring that over here, Mark? Closer.
So the answer to your
It's
question,
very
Mark,
poor audio.
Mind swapping the screen so we can see the people and the people can see us?
Instead of them seeing what you're seeing.
Probably do both, but.
Oh, I just, sorry.
You should have.
You know, there are 3 members of the commission here.
Hi, fellas.
So they'll listen, we're on the team.
So you'll be seeing that data as soon as it's ready. We're including Brittany and
So Mark, did you get an answer to your question?
I didn't, the audio is much better, but I didn't hear what the answer was, sorry.
regulatory.
Regulatory, okay, thank you.
Want to continue, Luke?
All right, yep. So, so we're making forward progress. To some extent, and we hope that this is additional information will be sufficient that DEP can have comfort in granting us some quantity of discharge at both Buck Island and at these alternate sites, Bayberry, Hills Golf Course, and then a site that we're calling Station Avenue, which is MassDOT right away. That Station Avenue, the mid-Cape. Regarding the water resource recovery facility design, the design is completed. One of the items that we need information from DEP is what level of treatment would they require for discharging into the zone 2. So we're still working, that's still part of the modeling effort that's being done to determine exactly what additional treatment would be needed. And then CDM will start looking at what's the additional cost in the treatment plant and how do we get the water from Buck Island Road up to these other alternative sites. So there need to be a pump station and maybe some additional piping. Fortunately, a force main exists right now from a septic receiving facility down to Buck Island Road that can be used to push water in the other direction, but there may be other branches that need to be constructed off that pipeline. So we're still in a holding pattern on advertising for the treatment plant. And until we get some more confidence from DEP that they're at least,
So
looking at.
in your notes, you're still putting at the outer timeline, September of 24 for this permit.
We're hoping for authorization to bid this summer in order to meet the fall town meeting or the October SRF requirement, whichever may be required.
So you would get an authorization before the permit?
Well, we're hoping they give us the approval to bid at that point based on thinking the sites we've identified are permittable. Whether the permit's in hand or not is an open question.
There's still gonna be a number of years before a drop of water ever leaves the site, so we're
Yeah,
hoping
just tightening up the
they work with us.
language in this memo. It's- We're still pointing to September 24. In the memo.
And that's what we're hopeful for, that we can get a permit that allows us not only to advertise, but to award the contract. Moving on to the collection system, I'll let, I know Mike has quite a bit of information on the collection system, so that rather than repeat it, if you want to jump into your, where we are with them.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at their notes, but yeah, we can just work off of, sure they say the same thing. So a lot to report on contracts 2 and 3. Contract 2, the construction contract with Robert B. Auer, who was the low bidder for contract 2, is out for signatures right now. I'm not sure where that stands. I think it's in the DocuSign system for signatures, so that's getting close. We also got final numbers from them for the change order associated with material price increases and some labor increase due to the delay in the contract award from when we bid it back in April, open bids back in April. So we got some final numbers in from RB Hour today. Looks like we're good to go and move forward with. It actually came in a little bit lower than they had originally told us, so that was good news. Still not overall good news because it is a change order. Contract number 3, as a reminder, Rivoli Construction is the contractor for that contract. The construction contract was executed, as well as the change order, again, to cover the additional costs associated with the delay in contract award. A notice to proceed to Rivoli was issued last week on January 30th. For them to start the submittal process and get materials in line. We actually had 2 pre-construction meetings last week on the 31st. The first pre-con meeting was with Mass DOT. They requested a separate pre-con meeting, so we had a Zoom call with them, and they essentially just walked through the permit. There's some requests that are being made by the town to modify the permit in terms of the hours that the contractor would be allowed to work. The typical permit is MassDOT restricts you to 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Contractors asking, I believe, for 7:30 to 3 or 3:30. So submit a request for modification to them for that. They also asked for relief from having to do a trench patch on a daily basis, which is a typical requirement in the permit. What they'd like to do is pave at the end of every week, so pave Friday afternoons, which is.
Is this Route 28?
That's just for Route 28.
Okay,
correct.
Because the state can't tell you what to do on.
That, exactly, that's correct. I'm sorry, I should clarify that. That's correct. Any work in Route 28 is subject to the permit from MassDOT.
So they want to put a steel plate over the hole instead, and then pave.
They may or may not plate it, they'll certainly backfill it with gravel and make sure it's in decent shape each day. And, you know, MassDOT always has, well, they first haven't approved that yet. If they do, then they'll monitor it. And if they're not happy with how he's cleaning up and keeping the trenches on a daily basis, they'll pull that and make them pave on a daily basis. So depending on how well he maintains the trenches, that'll determine if he's allowed to continue that way.
Question. So
Yes, sir.
South Shore Drive piece, which end of South Shore will we start at?
Let's start in the middle, essentially, and work out from both directions.
to the butters, will they be consulted as to where the keys will go?
So as part of this process, for any of these contracts and any of the roads, the town just sent out within the last week or so letters explaining the whole process to all of the property owners that are that abut the contract, as well as a form that they're asked to fill out that tells us and the town contractor where they want their particular stub on their property to be located.
It's coming up later in the agenda. There's some real detailed information. Okay. On both those issues. Go ahead.
So we had the pre-construction meetings. The second one was with various town departments, utility companies. We had probably about 20 people or so in this room just to walk through some of the requirements. DEP attended just to make sure everyone was clear, or the contract was clear. They do these projects all the time on the SRF requirements, all the postings that need to be made, all the paperwork that has to be processed. So, and as part of that, they did, and I believe you all got a copy, they issued their first cut at a preliminary schedule for the contract. We're still in the process of reviewing that. It's very aggressive, and they haven't started, actually just started last week submitting all of the shop drawings. So they have to submit shop drawings for all the materials they want to use. We have to review those, make sure they conform with the specifications. Once those get approved, they can proceed with.
No, I'm gonna jump the agenda.
Yes, sir.
You're referring to the schedule.
I believe
that
Jeff
you guys
sent
sent
that out.
us,
Correct.
right?
Yes,
But this isn't approved.
that was their first submittal, any of us have seen what they were proposing.
The reason I ask is this not online? On our website?
I think it is.
It is.
Yeah.
So I was gonna apologize to Jeff for jumping the gun, but I guess I didn't jump the gun. We putting that stuff up, albeit for transparency,
Mhm.
all for it, but is it premature until it's approved?
Yeah, I won't say it has to be approved per se, but certainly,
Signed off on. I mean,
we have to
I mean, you
look
don't
at
wanna-
it and make sure there
I'm
aren't.
gonna
any
go in there and
issues
see
and time.
when they're coming by my house, and then 2 weeks from now, you're gonna change the schedule.
Well, the
that's
schedule's
always
gonna
gonna happen.
change every couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah, they have to
I'll-
provide updates every 2 weeks, so it's gonna constantly change as crews are available.
Okay, so we'll
this and that.
develop a
Yeah.
a methodology for posting that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it needs to come through here, obviously, it's DPW discretion, but whatever public information putting up there, we have to kind of stand behind once it's up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a living document on any construction contract.
Just put it out that says subject to change.
It's subject to update.
So you guys all know what we're talking about?
Yeah.
People online, have you been to the website, town's website for these pages? Just checking, if you haven't, you should. Just all this, ton of information up there, available to the public on how this construction portion of the project's gonna go forward.
I can't remember, does it have a summer hiatus built in?
They're not allowed to work in either Route 28 or South Shore Drive in that particular contract between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Yes. And similarly, contract 2 came from Route 28. Yeah, so in terms of the schedule, again, that's going to change periodically. We just saw it for the first time early last week, so we're still trying to digest it. It's very aggressive. They're looking to bring in 3 mainline crews by early March, I believe. So,
I would think we'd have to kind of clean that up for people to really understand it, because it's labeled by stationing.
right.
Nobody knows where the stations are unless they pull up the plans, so.
Most people aren't gonna understand that schedule.
Yeah, so it's up there just to, definitely show that, we're trying to keep people informed, but we're gonna have to do something more user-friendly in the future as we get going.
I think the main intent was to let people know it's coming.
And to your previous question, there's maps that go with this as well, that show the exact Ts online. So you can go to your property and see where the connection's coming from. Whoever's putting all that stuff up should be complimented. It's just a ton of information. And it's gonna take a lot of the, the angst out of the property owners. They can just go find it for themselves and at least start understanding what's about to happen. This schedule is pretty detailed and straightforward. If you live on Judon Way, they're coming by on April 3rd.
Yeah, it's
So-
a short road, it's easy.
You know, I mean,
It's the longer
a lot
ones
of
that are
stuff.
tricky.
Right, so, but within the window of construction, I get the point. There's 52 days, 34 days, whatever. At some point during that time period, they'll come by. So I should kind of understand that. And it might be part of our responsibility to make sure that we push that information out there, know where to get it and kind of translate it at the same time, see what it says. Because otherwise somebody's gonna get a whole lot of phone calls as soon as that first backhoe's out there.
Out there today.
Yeah, it's there already.
Delivered.
They're on South Shore Drive.
Oh, so they just parked it. Okay.
No approved submittals yet, but yes, they're trying to mobilize their equipment. And just for information, so, CDM Smith is dealing with, if you will, all the sort of office functions of the construction process, contract administration, review and approval of submittals, processing payment requests and change orders and the like. Wright Pierce is providing the resident project representative that will be out in the fields. Plural representatives that will be out in the field monitoring the construction, dealing with issues, coordinating with homeowners, property owners that have questions about where their service location will be. And that type of thing.
So property owners have any say if they don't like what the T is.
Absolutely, yeah, we request that they tell us where they want it to be, yeah.
And one question's been asked for me by is, do the property owners just get the company forced on them or? how do you-
No, so the contractors that we've talked about here tonight, Aviara for contract 2, Revolt for contract 3. They'll put the mainline pipe running down each street, and then they'll put in the service connection over to the property line, and that's where their work stops. That's their work that the town is paying for. They end at the property line and put a cap on it. We take a look, measurements, so we know exactly where it is. Then at such time as the system is available, people can connect. Obviously, the treatment plant has to be up and running for that to happen, so it's a ways away. Once that happens, the property owners will be notified that they can connect. And at that time, they'll hire their own private contractor that'll extend the pipe from the stub that we left at the property line to wherever it needs to go to pick up their system. And that's a private transaction, obviously. Between
So David's
private
point,
contractor.
there's gonna be
They
a
can pick,
notification process. Is this letter out?
The letter did go out.
It was dated the 20th, the last time it was drafted, so it's gone out since then.
Yeah, it went out on first.
So
So
to
just-
answer your question, the operators are already getting this, the ones that are affected. And it comes with form to advise where the connection should be dropped. And I suppose you started getting these back in.
No, I know we have a couple of have gotten a couple phone calls. I don't know if Nick has gotten any,
Got 3
Yeah.
calls today.
just one that was mailed to the wrong address. They called about that, so I knew they got it, or they didn't get it.
But our inspector's on site right now, working out of Lori's office temporarily. And he's looking at the plans, he's going to all the properties, especially on South Shore Drive, because that's where we're gonna be starting. And he's just verifying that where the connection is shown on the drawing, that there isn't some obstacle there or something that maybe was missed during design or somebody planted a tree or something right where it's gonna go. But he's available to meet with individual homeowners to discuss the whole process if they're not familiar.
So that we're all on the same page when the following question gets asked. by South Shore Line residents and others, when will I be able to hook up? I realize we don't have an answer, but we ought to have something that say that it's reasonably in sync.
I would say it's at least a couple of years away at this point, because the plant, even if construction were to start today, is gonna take at least a couple of years to start.
So I know people live on South Shore, they've been asking me, so I'm hoping that.
Sure, and you know, you see the pipe going in and you think it's imminent, and that contract alone is gonna take, you know, a year and a half plus just
So
to complete.
Would an answer, just so again.
Sure.
Sometime in 2026.
Towards the end of 2026. Towards the end of 2026.
Towards the end of 2026, maybe 27.
The plant
That's
has
what
to
I
be
thought.
open.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm
No, it's a good-
trying to-
you are gonna get asked that question.
Not, that's a good idea,
Yeah.
for one of us to say
Yeah.
25, and
Right.
another one says
Yes.
26.
Yeah, I mean, more to the nuance in your question is when can I actually start working on this? You can't do it before the plant opens.
Understood.
You can't disconnect the septic system, connect the, sewer system to nowhere.
The messaging is important.
Yeah, no, it's a
that
good,
it's-
it's a good
that
question.
it's-
So people have time, but you know, for those that are anxious, it's gonna be a little bit of time. And when we get to that point, what we suggest, and obviously we have time to talk about it and get the word out, is that people get together with their neighbors and call 2 or 3 contractors, get prices and say, okay, if there are 10 of us, probably gonna get a better price than if I do it on my own. So something we suggest and usually works out pretty well.
Well, it's a homeowner association.
Or if there's an association,
Several 110 homes.
there you go, right. So you get prices from a couple of contractors, and if they know they're gonna get a number of residents signed up, you would think they would give a better price. So that's always our suggestion. But plenty of time for that. No one should be hiring a contractor just yet.
Yeah.
Hold on. And in terms of has the decision been made on the engineered plans, is that gonna be in the bylaws?
I think that's been decided.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the larger properties may need an engineer to look at it. I was looking at the septic records for some of the motels on Route 28.
Yeah.
And there might be 5 cesspools. 10 motel rooms. You know, so somebody's got to lay out how they can connect them all and get
Yeah,
that water.
Just a straightforward commercial property's got multiple septic systems out there, but remind us of this first phase, 600 to 800 hookups. Majority are commercial, right? We're not talking about a lot of residential at this point. So these guys are more likely to require engineers to put this connection plan together. You can't just sort of say, well, me and my neighbor want one. The 2 side-by-side systems probably look completely different, and there's some different timelines, different construction requirements for both. I'd be surprised if you're coordinating commercial hookups as much as those guys competing for commercial hookups. The ones who want to go sooner will go sooner, and there'll be commercial properties are going to resist until somebody tells them to do it. Sorry, go ahead. Anything left?
Yeah, that's it on contract 3, unless there are any other questions, since that's most imminent, pertinent. Contract 4, we're still working on finalizing that design. Rehash, obviously, that was originally part of the MassDOT project that got delayed. We have asked DEP permission for the town, if they so choose, to bid that contract. Rationale there is that obviously DEP allowed the town to award contracts 2 and 3. Contract 2 included several ad alternates that were included in the bid documents for some of the side streets between Route 28 and Old Main Street. Um, the flow from those ad alternate streets was included in the flow that the DEP allowed the town to proceed with the bidding, so that flow was accounted for in terms of the total flow from contracts 2 and 3. The flow from contract 4 is actually less than the flow from those additional streets that are now not going to be part of contract 2. So the theory is, the hope is that they would allow that additional flow from contract 4 to sort of take the place, if you will, of the flow that will not get connected as part of contract 2, because those ad alternates are not included in the current. That makes sense.
Who's got that discretion?
DEP does.
DEP would-
So it's going to a higher authority.
They haven't.
Well, the goal is to try to get it bid to save costs versus keep delaying and costs go up.
And to get ahead of the intersection project that they're supposed to advertise at the end of this year, so that we could get the sewer in before they start the roadway project.
Which is part of the Bass River Bridge replacement.
Mike, are you done with the design of contract 4?
It's pretty close. Yeah, we just have to do some cleanup stuff and get the spec all squared away. So originally, again, it was laid out and designed with MassDOT standards, because it was going to be included as part of their project, their roadway project. We're using their spec package, that type of thing. So we're still working.
So for the gang online, any questions for Michael on contracts 2, 3, or 4?
No.
We just can't see you. I didn't want you to think we were forgetting about you.
Thank you.
And then contracts 5 and 6, so the section of 28 between Barnstable and Parkers River, similarly, those were originally intended to be part of the MassDOT roadway project that's been put off until 2028 at this point. So moving forward with preparing those plans and specs for that design for those 2 separate contracts. So that we talked about it last time. We delineated the limits of contracts 5 and 6, as shown in the figure on the next slide. So we're in the process of finalizing those drawings as well. Specs.
With the intention of being able to bid and award that by October.
Correct. So that's in the same line, on the same schedule as contract 1, which is the water resource recovery facility. Once we get approval from DEP on the recharge capacity, that we would be able to bid those contracts as well.
Is it fair to say that your timing is such that 5 going out and it's starting to dovetail with the facility construction? So that when the facility is done, you actually have contract 5 hookups too?
That would be the intent. Yeah, they're all similar time frame, 2 years plus or minus. So presuming they get bid around the same time, then yeah, that's how you always hope that it works out from a schedule and sequencing standpoint with the plant and the.
Right, but it's
collection
just
system.
permission to bid contingent. We get it going, otherwise you fall behind.
Correct, but presumably when we get permission to advertise, it would be for all 3 of those at this point, 4 of those contracts 4, 5, and 6, and contract 1 at the same time. So they allow you to build a plant, then there's no reason not to allow you to build a collection system. So that approval would be at the same time.
Yeah, the flow from contract 3 flows into contract 5.
Mhm.
So that
You need-
the flow from 3 can't get to the treatment
Right,
plant
but
without
we were
contract
talking
5.
about,
can't go.
The easternmost part of 5, you didn't actually need to complete 5 to make it work. Okay, on collection, you want to go on to facility?
Yeah, we can, there's not much to report there. You'd have to back
No
up.
problem.
Laura.
Oh, I have to back up.
Yeah, yeah, I guess Lou covered it, right? So the design, it's just a question of getting authorization to permission to advertise the bidding. So the pre-qual process is essentially complete. There's one I think it's fire protection would have to still be re-qualified if you were re-advertised, so that hasn't happened yet. And then final selections would need to be made on the pre-qualification process, so. That's gonna dovetail with the whole discussion and timeframe that DEP allows the bidding.
Anything else? We've already done the regulatory piece, right?
But just going back to the map, the permit that we're asking DEP for capacity is for all of phase one. So hopefully, what they would approve is enough groundwater discharge for everything you see on the screen.
Discharged at multiple locations.
Correct.
Potentially,
At
yes.
this point.
Question. Question.
Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry, I don't mean to rehash what you spoke of in the beginning, but the audio was a little tough to hear. I couldn't hear anything. Did I hear the gentleman say that DEP's backed off their issue at the initial infiltration area as far as that restriction on the water height?
I'm not sure if back off is the correct term.
Okay,
They're open to allowing us to do a sensitivity analysis of 0.1, 0.5, and 1.0 feet of impact.
fair enough.
And then they will evaluate that analysis.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Thanks.
Sure.
They're at least willing to be flexible at this point.
Right. Well, that's good. That's better than ironclad.
Right.
Questions for these guys?
Yeah.
Comments?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question on, when do we think the engineers will be submitting all the documentation to justify getting all of phase one into the system? I'm talking about, we talked about the possibility of elevating the groundwater more than 0.1 feet. Obviously, they're asking for a description of what kind of impacts and how you're going to mitigate those impacts if there are any mitigations needed. How long is that going to take to get that information into DEP?
We're working on it now. We filed a grant with DEP that came about at the end of the year, only 3 weeks to put everything together. That town won't know whether they're getting that grant until March. But the work needs to be done, so the town has authorized us to move forward. Should they get that grant, all that money needs to be expended by the end of June. So our goal is to have everything completed before June.
This is for the additional design study work to demonstrate that the site can take it, or the multiple sites can take it.
Yes, to look at identifying additional effluent recharge sites and what the potential capacity is of those sites in order to handle that phase one flow capacity.
Okay, and then beyond that, moving forward to additional phases, there's gonna be a lot more work done. But that's beyond what you're asking for a grant on now.
Correct.
The goal now is, Lee, is just to identify enough recharge capacity to handle the existing flows from phase one. So that the town and DEP are comfortable that those sites have been identified and are permittable, that allow the town to bid those remaining contracts.
Is it possible that in the final analysis, when we move on to other phases, are we gonna be looking at, you know, an NPDES permit for an ocean discharge or additional discharge that's gonna end up in Nantucket Sound?
There's a chance the town will need an NPDES permit, whether it's for any type of surface water discharge, be it a stream or the ocean.
Okay. And based on the existing treatment plant design, do the engineers feel that the design, the final effluent will meet standards that won't require additional treatment before discharge if it's going to be a surface discharge?
Some of the treatment standards are unknown at this time, depending on where the sites are. Treatment standards change depending on the time of travel from that recharge site to a municipal well. And if it's to a stream or the ocean, those standards might be different as well. Phosphorus might be added into it right now. Most groundwater permits don't have phosphorus. So some of those treatment requirements are unknown at this time, until we further identify the effluent sites and know time of travel to wells and other things like that.
Sounds to me like it's reasonable to assume that we're gonna end up getting an NPDES permit and a surface discharge. Down the road.
That's probably a logical assumption.
Okay, that's all I have.
Just a follow-up question to that, would it make sense to begin the request for permitting to do ocean water discharge at some point? If we're never gonna get enough permitting to do groundwater discharge that meets the total town requirements, and we know there are long lead times to get involved with ocean water discharge. I'm asking a hypothetical question. Good idea, not good idea?
There's pros and cons to an ocean discharge, obviously. You know, you've got environmental concerns, but you're also taking water away from recharging the town's public water supplies, the groundwater.
I understand that, but it's beginning to look like we're never, ever gonna get where we need to go with groundwater discharge.
More likely scenario would be surface water discharge, not necessarily the ocean. So as Dave
Okay.
said, it would be a stream or something
Well,
along
again,
those lines that
does
would
that
require an NPDES permit.
But does that not have a long lead time to it?
All NPDES permits, whether it's to a stream or the ocean, have significant lead times. That's why for phase one, we're all focused on trying to
So
find.
I know, I'm just thinking
groundwater
out loud
sites.
here, get to a functioning system, albeit maybe 10% of its ultimate capacity in 2027, and by 2030, you know, we're ramping up, and we don't have the facility to do what we need to do with groundwater, and it took 5 years to get a surface water discharge permit. Do we want to start our process.
It's on the table now. It's part of the discussion. It's part of the matrix that we're looking at, you know, would the sites likely be candidates for an use permit? So, yeah, no, it's a great point, and yes, we need to look ahead
I mean, it would
and
be
plan for
frustrating-
future phases.
It would be frustrating for the townspeople. I don't know where we'll be with bonding by then, but you know, we're gonna be at 207. And it's gonna be impacting a fair number of the citizens in terms of something by way of betterment charges, user fees, et cetera. Who knows what the tax rate of the town is gonna be, and we'll have a system. I don't think want to be in a situation where we tell people, yes, but we got it, but you can't use it. I'm just putting this stuff out here.
Yeah.
That's a great point. But, you know, the town, once we get approval to bid phase one, because we found F1 recharge sites for that. I'm sure the town will be asking that question of during the construction period, which is a 3-year period, and then the next 5-year phase two period, that 8-year chunk. Should we be looking at an NPDS permit and where?
I mean, people, it's irrelevant to this conversation, but people are saying, well, why didn't we do this in 2011?
You're making Mr. Bishop very nervous.
Okay.
Who's qualified for improving the flows in the river? The flushing of the Brass River, so to speak.
Well, you laugh, but other parts of the country would actively encourage water going to a stream because it's known as flow enhancement, and you're improving the water quality of the stream.
Exactly what I was talking about. Sorry to laugh, but the irony is just too.
But John, we did raise that question with DEP. And because this all stems from this Supreme Court case in Maui.
Yeah.
They haven't made a decision yet how to interpret that on projects like this. So ultimately, more than likely, the town's gonna have to look at a discharge permit in the future.
Guys, okay with the consultants' reports? Do we want to talk about the imminent public safety issues that are coming up? If they're actually going to be out on the streets next month? I mean, just obviously coordination going on the site. And we've done a nice job getting our website ready to address where the construction is happening and when. And I even noticed there's an app on our website now to let people navigate around it if possible, or at least give them a shot at figuring out how to get around it. That's sort of our flashpoint with the public when this thing starts and they start having to deal with that. So soon DPW is prepared.
Right, well, we have the pre-construction meeting, which fire, police, and the schools were at. So, well, we do plan to have another meeting with them once we have traffic management plans from the contractors. So that they'll know, you know, what the detours are for where we are at each point in the process.
Aside from proactively going on the site to get that information, we set up a sign up.
We have actually, they're gonna bring out 2 of the variable message boards.
Well, those are on site. I'm saying, if you want to get an email every morning about what's going on, or at least as periodically as you send.
Yeah, you can you can subscribe through the website.
Yeah, I did that. I
as
just haven't
well.
got anything yet.
We
So-
haven't put anything out.
Right, so
We
that's
have
really the
A
question.
meeting with Lori Sullivan and this week to kind of determine exactly what we're gonna be putting out on a weekly or daily or whatever basis, so. We're still working on that.
So we have a communications system planned or in place that we're going to be using to sort of make sure that we don't lose any of the public support we currently have for the project. Any questions for those of you going to be affected by this? Anybody in this phase one by any chance? Well, we're all going to be driving through it. We don't have a choice, but just curious whose lives are going to be most affected first. Any changes on the financing side of the project? you're playing with some numbers, but that's not affecting the overall financing scheme at the moment. The numbers, I mean, adjustments to construction costs and additions to infrastructure we may need.
The big milestone will be the bids on the plant. Then we'll know if we can afford this. Everything's estimates right now.
Is the 207 for phase 1?
Yeah.
Only, and that includes the plant.
And the plant's 125, so it's more than half. So that's really the, we can manage, 2 and 3 didn't, blast us out of the water, but 1, that's the big boy.
The members online, any questions you guys want to raise, even if it's on the agenda before we start to wrap up?
I had one at some
I
point.
previously,
Go ahead.
Go, Mary.
Let Mary go ahead.
I had previously mentioned, that I thought the hospital should be included in the discussions with the fire, police, et cetera, because of patient transport consideration. I just hope that that's happened.
Yes, at the pre-construction meeting we had, I raised that issue that the contractor needed to be aware that Route 28 is a major thoroughfare for ambulance runs. And the police and fire chiefs were both there and said they would be in direct communications with the hospital as well as the fire or ambulance departments in Dennis, Harwich, and Chatham.
Great, thank you.
Chairman, just to follow, at some point earlier in the meeting, I heard the phrase at special town meeting. And I just wanted to go back. I heard it, and I just want to make sure I understood. Is there something happening at special town meeting in the fall related to this project?
I just threw out the option if the town needed to get money for additional design or construction or whatever. No decisions made.
Right, but I'm saying that relates to what you were saying, Bob, is the 207. But we don't have the bids yet for the WRF.
Yeah, I didn't say anything about town meeting.
No, I didn't say you did, but what I'm saying is, I definitely heard what I heard.
I said.
So what I'm getting at is, if I'm trying to piece this all together, if we get to 4 months from now and we're finally okay with bidding on the WRF and the bids come back and it's 250. Or it goes way over 207, then we'll have to go to special town meeting.
I'm not prepared to. make
Sorry,
that decision.
there would be a scenario in which the town would have to be asked for more money in order to afford something that's above what the town has already
So
approved. I mean, that's not a controversial
just it's
statement.
it'd probably be good to remind what contingencies were built into the 207.
Okay,
So everybody understands that there's some leeway. What's the right word? Cushion.
Yeah, there's not a lot of cushion. There's not a lot of cushion on this project. And you can't just waltz into town meeting and ask for another 100 million.
I don't believe you heard me say that.
No, I know, but that's my point. So
Right, and that's.
we're gonna have to
the last
look
thing
at it real closely because, there's only so much revenue that's available to pay back. This is all debt. There's no grants that we've got. It's all debt. So we just would need to have a source of funds, so if part of the thing was to say that our budget was insufficient, we needed additional, funds to support the expenditures. We'd also need a way to pay that back. So there's a lot to it.
Sure, and a lot unknown until we get to the point where we can bid it. The still.
Just to be clear, it's not a special town meeting, it's a regular town meeting.
Doesn't,
Well,
it's
that's
not required,
Don't
it's
we
not
have
required,
two, don't we have two town meetings in now? We have one spring and the fall? Yeah,
it's not required.
that's just a colloquial for the this fall one.
Yeah, it's still, I think the fall town meeting is still considered a special town meeting.
It's not the budget.
Yes. It's archaic.
So we are a fairly unique position vis-a-vis DEP because we're first. Working group, I assume, doesn't exist in other towns yet. Right?
Not far.
And we're identifying issues in the town of Yarmouth that will be present in other towns as well. They're gonna have discharge issues as well. So we're working out this relationship with DEP and they're working out their sort of approval process or regulatory process. with us as they're going along, which eventually apply to other towns. Just to say, it's not just us. I'm assuming everyone else is gonna be in the same boat pretty soon. As soon as they start hitting these milestones as well in their projects. Any experience we can glean from what's happening elsewhere? Barnstable, for example, sort of humming along and getting their heads kicked in from their townsfolk on traffic, but aside from that.
Well, actually, Barnstable is holding similar meetings, only on a monthly basis. Because they're floating the idea of even looking at more advanced reuse options, because they're having difficulty finding effluent recharge sites as well. But they're looking at what we refer to as indirect potable reuse, where you know, to save mounding, you pump groundwater out of the ground
Yeah,
to prevent mounding, and then you send it someplace. That could be to a water treatment plant.
that's to be treated.
Yes.
Okay.
Potability. Well, no, or you could do direct and send the effluent directly to a water treatment plant. Some very water short areas in the country, California, Arizona, Texas, are actually piloting, and a couple installations have been installed where that's happening. So Barnstable, looking down the road and all the flow they're going to need, is started to have DEP look at that, because they don't have regulations that here in Mass that currently address those options.
Stuff. If you think about it.
Well, you know, people need to, the treatment standards today, even what's proposed now without any of this discussion we've just had. You know, that effluent needs to be looked at as a product, not a waste material. Which is what some people think of it as. Oh, you're dumping dirty water in my backyard type of thing. It's
That's exactly what we're doing.
cleaner
now.
than most of the river
Right.
waters.
So, no, we find ourselves in that position of having moved our wastewater discharge from individually doing it in our backyards to now putting it all in one place. So we have to mitigate and accommodate for that. Did you bump into this through the administrators over there? The town of Barnstable is hiring a betterment coordinator. Is there a useful purpose to that on this side of the fence? We're not running.
It's interesting because they don't have betterments. They have sewer
I'm
assessments.
curious.
We could use a betterment coordinator, I'll tell you that right now.
so.
Just sort of jumped out at me one afternoon on, and I was, what is a betterment coordinator? I went through its job description and it's a real thing. I guess they want their town folk speaking specifically to somebody in their finance department. And that's all this person apparently would be doing, which I'm sure is a job and then some. So these things are starting to percolate over there. Haven't gotten to us yet, obviously. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question. I was wondering if there's a possibility of using this water for irrigation on the golf courses. Do we have to do further treatment in order to do that?
You currently use the water from the septic treatment plant as your irrigation source water for Bayberry Hills. The town is actually making some improvements to make that process easier. So that you can use all of that effluent on it. We got the permit expanded from 7 holes to all 27 holes, I think 3 years ago. That was the goal. Looking at one of the other sites that was identified for the Bass River Golf Course, where you store the effluent in the groundwater, and that they already have a system there where they pump the groundwater up into an irrigation pond. And then they draw that out into the irrigation system. So essentially, both golf courses are using, or hopefully both will be using reclaimed water in the future. Yes, it has a higher disinfection standard.
Close enough, Lee?
So we might be able to sell this in the future. The effluent.
Yeah, we'll have to
Yeah.
transport it. That's the key, is figuring out how to move it around. It's expensive.
Right.
But yeah, we'll be doing a lot of stuff with it, and remember, we talked so many times about, well, let's distribute it back to where it came from. That was a part of the plan for the longest time. It just wound up being so expensive. We had to cut it out so we could afford phase one, but
You'd have to build a second line back.
so, that'll be on the table, and this Neptune stuff, you can count on that, even for the future groundwater discharge, because, right, that whole test is that if it's close enough and you're just discharging it into the ground, but it's close enough to a surface water, they consider that equivalent. So yeah, we'll be in Neptune, and that gets EPA involved, so that'll be a whole nother world.
Anything else of substance before we go into meeting minutes from last meeting? So have you guys all taken a look at the minutes from last month?
Move we accept as submitted.
Second,
David seconds. John? David? Mark?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Lee?
aye.
George?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Aye. Myself. Anything for Friends of Bass River before we adjourn?
Sure. 2 Wednesdays ago, the Friends of Bass River in the town of Yarmouth hosted a public comment presentation for the entire Upper Bass River Headwaters project. All the engineering firms were there. And I'm pleased to say that the town hall meeting room was filled to capacity. We had 30 more on Zoom, and we've had 119 views on YouTube at my last check. So we had great interest in the project. It was very favorably received. I get the hand it off from Tanya.
Terrific. Is there some point in the future you want to make a more full presentation
Oh,
to the committee? What's going on?
absolutely.
We might be bumping into each other in the near future, as they say. Motion to adjourn.
When's the next meeting?
So March.
March 4th.
Yeah, that would be the first Monday. Any issues? I think St. Patrick's is the next weekend.
The parade, the 9th, yeah.
Okay, so we're not dumping into anything near St. Patrick's, but it's a thought.
That gravel's nice and packed.
They wouldn't even be there yet.
No.
It's a good question, isn't it?
28th. Sure.
Yeah, the freight is
So we've had.
flat in the middle of it.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
Are they,
We
are
won't
you
have
all
that.
sponsoring a float?
There's gonna be a DPW float.
Good, because you're gonna,
We should put all their backhoes in. If they're gonna mobilize, let's mobilize.
let's make sure we're only an hour, have a float, and everyone can can throw the candy back at them. We
Something
actually,
with a fountain.
we actually, we could just put giant toilets up on the flatbed. We actually held a parade through the Parker River Bridge one year as it was being constructed. So we know how to do this, right? Because that was a bit of a mess for that couple 100 yards that needed to sort of wind through that area. And I assume it won't be that bad. If it's all,
Construction won't have started on Route 28 by the parade time.
okay, well, there you go. It's not even a fake. It's all PR. All right, March 4th, okay?
We're gonna have a groundbreaking ceremony on February 20th. It's not gonna be February 20th. We're trading around dates in the first 2 weeks of March. It'll probably be in the morning. We're just we figured we'd start nailing down the selectmen, and I'm gonna try to, they've been looking at their calendars, so I'm gonna try to tomorrow nail that down.
Are we, is this a,
We need the committee there.
we're looking to do a full-on groundbreaking ceremony?
Yeah.
This is not like one of those, used to do this in the in state administration, whenever we want to sign something, nobody wanted to take credit for it, we do it in the governor's backyard at midnight. And nobody knew the difference.
No, we wanted to do a nice one.
Couple piles of dirt and some gold shovels and.
Where,
carpets
you
and-
talking about the resource, on South Shore Drive or?
To be determined. it
TBD.
sounds
Still
Okay.
figuring that out.
Got it.
Maybe in the park.
Maybe the pump station site.
Where, in front of the old drive.
No, at the South Shore.
Out
We
there.
did that for this building. It was really nice.
We should have.
Groundbreaking.
One of those historic markers, so for wherever we put the shovel in the ground, so for 200 years from now. people know that This is where. We need a time capsule, that's.
Golden spike.
Sorry, I lost track. Did we adjourn?
No.
So, motion
March-
to
sorry,
adjourn,
March 4th is-
second,
March 4th is happening.
March 4th, first Monday, John.
Yeah.
David, Mark,
Jeff.
Aye,
Mary, Lee.
Aye.
George
aye,
Aye.
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 and myself. All right, at least we're adjourned. You guys can keep talking.
And March 5, we have an election. It's primary day in Massachusetts.
Well,
Thanks a
listen,
lot.
it's not the same thing, but you can always do it on April 15th.
Oh, it's fine.
Local election too?
No, not, the local election is in May. Somewhere around May 16 or something, but the primary will be in. Yeah. So it's like, you know what? Your expenses. It's like. I don't think it'll be this. By the way. They are.
Yeah, they're increasing the number of rooms.
Well, a mile away. You gotta really be able to make the decision. If you knock down the. Okay, but just doing over the. Serious, makes it more year round. Dry, 95% of theoretically, one question about the rainbow comes out. Yeah. But luckily they have that, we're going by the Title V. You know, so look, so we are hopeful, right? So it's not gonna be exactly what we do. Official, when you do the bill, it's DEP, but that's for the operation, you have to, and then plus, you know, there is the third, well, you say you guys like the capital surcharge.
Nothing else, you want
The
more
better-
people to come there and use them before year round, you get more rooms to build things.
No, I don't, I encourage anybody spending any money in my town, as opposed to having them, just get worse and worse. Then only the migrant people wanna live there, right?
Yeah,
Thank you, Lauren.
yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, well, it's been one of my best Mondays in a long time. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Making some progress, you know, or. Yeah, maybe more, or what? I don't know. We're gonna have by Friday, to make this filled out. That's from there, station out.
Yeah.
I'm sending you something out. Yeah, I'm appreciative. After we work on it, we put people off.
Yeah.
I don't really know that I can consider those. Well, how are you gonna prepare that? Good, I could drop it off maybe. Maybe I can find stairs. Start and you're, I could look at around. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I put your. There's the ramifications of the whole. The 90 day. Given. Ratio is not an accident. And then the point one criteria.
I didn't know I was last minute, I'm like.
Thanks, Laura. We look forward to the meeting.
Yeah. I don't think I go back and watch the recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
The BBC meeting. Actually recorded. Asked if we could record it
Yeah.
and. Subject to say, well, you on this day. you
Right,
said
yeah.
that, But I was able to record it on.
Wow.
Right.
Maybe I will have to, you know.
I saw on, you know. You would say recording transcribe.
Yeah, it goes up for a voicemail.
Yeah, so we're gonna. Cause it was way more, I ended up with 8 pages of
Yeah,
line notes.
right.
And every line and.
Yeah.
That's what I looked at the lesson.